all the members of my family had been killed.
The sound you just heard was of Sean Russell, the father of Josie and Megan, and the husband of Lynn Russell. On July 9th, 1996, Sean came home from work to find the house completely empty, with no sign of his family or their dog, Lucy. The police began searching the rural area surrounding the house, but by midnight, Sean's world completely collapsed when the police informed him that they had found the bodies of Lynn, his 2 children, and the dog. Upon hearing this news, his first reaction was disbelief. How could someone do something so horrific? The gruesome crime stunned the residents of the small village of Chillenden in East Kent, Kent County. However, the police had no leads and had no idea what had truly happened. Sean's entire family had been brutally murdered, sending the entire area into panic. At that point, the case seemed destined to become an unsolvable mystery. However, by around 6 a.m. the next morning, when Sean arrived at the police station, he received a glimmer of hope. The police informed him that although they had reported the previous night that his entire family had died, this morning, they had discovered a girl who appeared to still be alive. That girl was 9-year-old Josie Russell. Josie lived with her 6-year-old sister Megan, her mother Lynn, and her father Sean in the village of Chillenden in East Kent. The 2 sisters were fond of animals and outdoor activities, often playing with their dog, Lucy. Before the incident, the family appeared to be very happy. Sean was a devoted father, and Lynn was a wonderful wife and mother. On July 9th, 1996, Josie and Megan were getting ready for school. Sean took the children to school and then went to work. In the afternoon, Lynn went to pick up the girls after their swimming competition with the dog Lucy in tow, while Sean was out running errands. A neighbor saw Josie, Megan, and Lynn coming down the stairs and offered them a ride home. However, when they honked the horn, no one responded. By 9 p.m., when the family had still not returned home, Sean began to feel uneasy. He tried to contact the police, the veterinarian, and the hospital, but received no information. He called the hospital, but no one had any answers. He drove along the road the children usually walked home, a journey that normally took about half an hour. At this point, the Russell family had been missing for over 5 hours since leaving school, and no one had seen them. Sean said he had done everything he could, but now he was truly desperate. At that time of night, it was impossible to believe that a woman and 2 young children would just be wandering aimlessly outside. Sean called the police once more, and they brought in search dogs to track the scent of Lynn, Megan, and Josie around the rural area. The police questioned Sean about his family life and marriage, asking if there were any conflicts with his family or any reason why Lynn might have taken the children and left. Although these questions had no basis, he answered them honestly. The police continued searching the area, and by 11:30 p.m., when they returned to Sean's house, he feared the worst had happened. After investigating the scene, the police had more questions than answers. The search for the missing family had now turned into a manhunt for a murderer still at large. When Sean heard this, he could hardly believe that someone could be so insane as to harm a woman with 2 small children and a dog. In just one night, Sean lost everything he held dear. But the next morning, an officer brought news that would change everything. The whole family had been found and taken to the hospital. Initially, they thought everyone had died, but the officer told Sean that although they had reported his family's deaths the previous night, this morning, they had discovered that one of his daughters seemed to be alive. Doctors were working hard to save her, and the police were present, informing Sean that one of his daughters had survived. However, the bodies of Lynn, Megan, and the dog Lucy were found just a few hundred meters off the route the family would take from school. The police investigated the scene, but many questions remained unanswered. By 9 a.m. on July 10th, more than 9 hours after the murder was discovered, Sean rushed to the hospital. He still didn't know which of his loved ones had survived. Even through the glass door of the ICU, with the mask and respirator, he recognized a few signs. After being informed that his family had died, he was now reunited with his daughter, but the nightmare was far from over. Though Josie had miraculously survived, she had suffered severe brain damage and was being kept alive by machines. The doctors had to perform emergency surgery, attaching a 4-inch titanium plate to reconstruct her skull. She survived the danger, but due to her injuries, she could not speak. Now, Sean faced the heartbreaking task of telling his daughter that her mother and sister had passed away. During her hospital stay, One of the few things that helped Josie stay calm was going outside like she used to. Josie struggled with speaking, reading, and writing, but she overcame the challenges to continue living. The area where the attack occurred had a vital artery, and if that artery had been damaged, the victim would likely not have survived long enough to be found. The doctors observed her gradual recovery, and just 6 weeks later, Josie was able to go home. Some doctors even called it a miracle. Josie returned home, but the once peaceful countryside was now filled with fear every day. Before, you could walk across the fields without any problem, but now, this peaceful place was no longer safe. A madman was lurking somewhere, making you no longer feel secure. Many people still lived in fear, too scared to take their children for a walk in the countryside. The killer seemed to control the entire area. Sean worried for the safety of anyone or anything close to him. The murderer had not only killed his wife and children, but also the family dog. The police continued their efforts to catch the killer, hoping to bring some comfort to the Russell family. They determined the murder had occurred between 4:30 and 4:45 p.m., but there were few clues. After appealing to the public for help, several witnesses came forward. The police were told that a light-colored car was seen near the scene, and a man carrying a hammer appeared in the area. Another witness stated that about 20 minutes later, less than a mile away, they saw a similar beige car. This person also saw a man standing by the side of the road, seemingly searching for something. After leaving, the witness looked around and found a blood-stained bag. But it wasn't until he heard about the murder that he reported it to the police. He admitted he didn't recognize the stain as blood and had left the bag there. Investigators were able to locate the killer's position for the first time after the incident at a second crime scene. However, the blood didn't help them identify the suspect, and the lead went cold. With the killer still on the loose, Sean wanted to take Josie somewhere safe. They moved to North Wales. His daughter still could not speak, and Sean sought help from the local school. Months had passed since the attack, and the police still had no suspects or motives. They began to feel desperate. 2 officers, Pauline Smith and Edwin Tingley, had no other witnesses, so they had to place their hopes on Josie, the 9-year-old girl. Josie was their only hope for finding answers. Though the process was slow and long, Josie gradually recovered, and the detectives felt that she wanted to reveal the truth. After many attempts, the case finally made a breakthrough. Detective Smith came up with the idea of creating a model of Josie, her family, and the killer, then asking her to recount what had happened. Although this method seemed unusual, it had an unexpected effect. Josie began to communicate more. As she continued to recover, she gradually regained her ability to speak. Although she still avoided talking about that night, even not telling her father, as the sole survivor, she finally shared with the detectives what had happened. When they were coming back from the swimming competition, the girls saw a man in a car. Josie waved at him as they passed. The man got out and demanded money. Their mother told him she didn't have any, but offered to go home and get some. After being refused, he told Josie to run away. But the man grabbed her and pulled her back. He tore her swim cap off, using the piece of cloth to tie Josie's hands behind her back. He also used her tight pants to tie her to a tree. The man blindfolded Josie, telling her he would leave and drive away. He calmly said he wouldn't harm them, but that wasn't the truth. Josie couldn't see what Megan and Lynn were enduring, but she could hear the killer repeatedly striking them with the hammer. When Josie tried to struggle to save her family, the killer attacked her multiple times, rendering her unconscious. Josie's survival remains unbelievable, especially considering the extent of the injuries she sustained. But for some reason, she pulled through, while the other 2 did not. A year after the attack, investigators had made very little progress in the case. Based on witness descriptions, they released a sketch of the suspect, but still found no evidence leading to an arrest. They once again called for public help, hoping for new information. This time, a psychologist provided the police with information about one of his patients, a 37-year-old man named Michael Stone. 5 days before the murder, Stone had threatened to kill an entire family. He even told a psychiatric nurse that he wanted to kill children in the woods. A friend reported that, on the day of the crime, Stone was wearing blood-stained clothes, but Stone told the police that he had burned all his clothes so they couldn't be examined. The psychologist also noted that Stone's appearance matched the description given by the police. When Michael Stone was first identified as a potential suspect, the detectives began a thorough investigation into his background, movements, and potential for committing the crime. On July 17, 1997, more than a year after the attack, Michael Stone was arrested. His past slowly came to light. He had been struck with a hammer as a child, abused in his family and care facilities. He had been addicted to drugs from an early age and had served time in prison for robbery and for assaulting a man with a hammer. On October 6, 1998, more than 2 years after the Russell family attack, Michael Stone stood trial. He continued to insist that he was innocent. Because there was virtually no physical evidence, the prosecution relied heavily on testimonies from other inmates who claimed to have heard Stone confessing to the crime in prison. However, they needed more evidence. The police recorded a video of their conversation with Josie, which could be the key to the case. The jury watched the tape of Josie describing the attack, which moved everyone in the courtroom. The trial lasted for 14 days and then concluded. The jury voted 10-2 to convict Michael Stone. He was sentenced to 3 life terms for the murders of Lynn and Megan Russell, as well as for the attempted murder of Josie Russell. After more than 2 years of investigation, Josie was ready to leave the past behind and live as a normal girl. Despite enduring misfortune and sorrow, many good things had also happened. Josie didn't want anyone to pity her, nor did she need anyone to ask if she was okay, because she was fine. Everything was okay.